Welcome back to another We Power podcast, We Power broadcast. We have another super exciting show for you. And actually, this show is so super exciting because this is going to be our first show of 2023. As promised, all new episodes are coming. We've got a schedule of shows that's going to be filled with power-packed information. As you know, here at We Power, we believe that one person's noble passion can be the solution to another person's problem. So our goal here is to expose the passions and people that we can expose solutions to our community. And one of the ways we do that, as we theme our show again for this year, is just being able to identify what works for you. You know, life inside the box really doesn't work too well for a whole lot of people. Many of us, adapt to living inside the box. But man, oh man, when you experience life outside the box, man, how does that change the landscape? It truly does reveal to you that the sky is the limit. When you can live life pursuing the dreams that God has placed in you. We have a very special guest today, and he's going to kick us off in that theme of being able to identify what works for you. It's been a long time coming. Very, very good friend of mine, special friend of mine. And I am honored that he would take time out of his day to come and share with us here on the We Power podcast. I'm going to introduce him, and we're going to jump right into his story and who he is, what he does, and how he was able to identify what worked for him. So sit back, relax, grab your cup of coffee, your tea, water, or Sprite, and enjoy the next 20 minutes or so here on the We Power podcast, the We Power broadcast. Let me introduce my special guest. Good friend, longtime friend. We've been up, we've been down, we've been through, we've laughed, we've cried, and through all of that, he yet still considers me a friend. I think I'll ask him and we'll get it straight from him. But none other than David E. Finnell, your financial guy. David Finnell is a financial guy. He's an educator, and he's the person that you definitely want to reach out to when you're having to make decisions pertaining to the finances of your future and planning and looking at what options do you have. But more than that, David's a good person. He's a good friend. And we're going to be talking with David today about how he was able to identify what worked for him. And David is also an author. And through that process, he has written a book. Well, he's got a couple of books that he's put out, but we're going to be talking about one book in particular. And the title of that book is called The Other Side of the Fence. And before we jump into it, I'm going to let David introduce himself and just share what he would like you guys to know. David Finnell, welcome to the show, man. It's been a long time coming. Glad you're here. Honored that you would take time out your busy day just to spend 20 minutes or so with me to share in how you were able to identify what worked for you. So take a few minutes, man, and just introduce yourself to the We Power audience.
Yeah. Well, Phil, thank you. I appreciate being asked to participate and be on your show. I have been in those situations where I've had to try to explain things and try to share different aspects of my thoughts and background, and this is a special opportunity. I am the reason that I am an author of it's an ebook is because I was inspired and motivated. In fact, I think I got the idea on the day that I was laid off from a job. But it was before that I started to do some things on my own. And what I started with was the traditional path that you go to school, you get a good education, you get a good job, you keep it, and on and on.
The traditional box. We're born, and they tell us get a good education. Get a good education. You get a good job. Get married. Have kids. And life is great. Sounds good, but it doesn't always work that well for everybody. So tell us about what do you do? What are you doing now?
Well, you introduced me as a financial guide, and I actually coined that term by not seeing it in other places. I kind of stay away from the terms financial advisor, I was calling myself a financial counselor for a while. But I think a guide is really a different animal. If you think about you employ a guide when you are going to do something that you want to do.
Right.
When you take a vacation and you want to go through the cave, or you want to be led around the city.
Like a tour guide.
That's right.
Okay.
You get somebody who is there to show you the way, but not to take the way for you or from you.
Okay.
They give you the tools so that you're able to decide for yourself which way you want to go, and they show you the highlights that make the most sense to you. Mm-hmm. They base it on what you want to see.
Right.
And a financial guide is that it always is very personal.
Right.
No two people are alike or have the same money, or have the same needs, or have the same profile. And so the first thing that I do is set it up that, listen, just tell me who you are, because I'm not trying to sell you anything.
Right.
This is about me guiding you through your decisions, through your thought processes, so that you can get to the place that you're trying to get to financially.
Where would you say most people are when it comes to understanding that, and the different levels, different options, the financial literacy and a whole? It's more than getting a paycheck and seeing how much money you got at the end of the month, or for most of us, there's more month than money, and we don't even really look into the future for its financial planning and retirement, especially in the African American community. We just kind of we seem to be on this paycheck to paycheck type of cycle. On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say most people are? 10 being the best and 1 being the worst.
Well, it's hard to put a number on most people, but what you have to realize is that it's a statistical thing, because you're going to have if you think about, they call it a normal curve, where most of the people are in the middle.
Okay.
Then you have a few outliers, the ones on the far end, the small tail of that bumpy graph. Those are the few people who have figured some things out.
Okay.
And they know how to make money, they know how to keep it, they know how to grow it. On the opposite end of the scale, folks who are really struggling, there's no way that they're ever going to save, because there's nothing to save.
Oh.
Then you have folks in the middle, and that middle group, really, the biggest thing there is if I don't think about it, it'll take care of itself. Or if I don't think about it, it'll go away. Or I'm in my thing here, I'll do that when I have time. I'll take time later. But for a lot of people, really, it's scary. And that's the thing I've heard more than anything else. Just mentioning financial planning.
Right. That sounds like most men in their health. I'll get to it when I get to it, or if there's no immediate pain, we just kind of overlook it. And so that's kind of how I look at it, as being financial healthy or financial unhealthy. And most of us, we avoid going to the doctor. We don't go for that regular checkup. So would you encourage, as a financial guide, to have guess somebody that you could check up on your finances and see how you're doing, see where you're going. And finances are most people don't like to talk about their financial situation.
Well, there's a few rocks and hard places along the way, because the one of those bumps is I have to get somebody, I have to find somebody, I have to pay somebody, which is not true.
Okay.
Not necessarily true. I'll talk about that. I can talk about that. Another bump there is that I have to have a certain amount of money in order to even do this.
Okay.
Which is absolutely not true. In fact, the biggest obstacle people have, or I should say the biggest regret really that people have, is they've gotten into the last 5 to 10 years before retirement, and because they put it off, they don't have much time left to benefit from the saving and the time effect on savings that really grow to the sum that they need.
Right.
And so there are these obstacles, and I think that most people really, that bubble in the middle, are there, and the ones who have figured it out have taken some kind of a step that the rest haven't.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about how you got here, how you were able to identify that this profession worked for you. And so I want to talk about why we are here and what brought us here today. You are an accomplished author, and you have written a book titled The Other Side of the Fence. Talk to us about that title and how and what that title means to you.
Yeah, let's talk about what that means. Let's go back to the conversation about the typical pathway of education, job, etc. I did that. I have degrees, all the way up through a master's degree in business. I worked for Fortune 500 companies. I was with 4 major companies in the professional realm, doing what I went to school for. At the same time, though, I have always, and in looking back, I see it all the way back to even when I was a kid. I've always had this itch for I can do something, and I want to provide my own service level of whatever it is that I take on, because I'm very passionate about customer service.
Okay.
And as I started to see even in my corporate jobs, and the last one that I had, the things that I could see that I thought we could do, they move at a snail's pace when you're in a large corporate environment, unless that piece of the corporation that you're in has been given a notion to operate more like a small business. But big businesses, they turn very slowly.
Okay.
And that just, I don't know, it frustrated me. It's not that it's wrong, it was okay. It's just that my mind was geared towards something else, and I got less and less happy in those roles. And I challenged myself with something that I was always itching for, but yet afraid of, because I was in that cycle of security where I do this work and I get paid. And I'm going to retire from here, is what I said.
Right.
But then I was at the last company, and I spent 15 years there. And I say I was there 15 years, and I spent the last 12 trying to figure out how to leave.
Wait a minute. You were there, you were at your last company for 15 years, but you spent 12 of those 15 years trying to figure out how to leave. What did that look like?
I wanted to find something that I could do and be just as financially secure. And I started looking outside, because I thought there's got to be some things. I remember the first time I ever invested in a what do they call it, a business opportunity. It was a multi-level marketing.
Multi-level marketing. Yeah, we all been there.
Yeah, I spent about $250 to get in.
Yeah,
and I didn't sleep that night because $250. But it wasn't the money. It was I projected way ahead to saying, what if this thing that I've just put money into, what if it succeeds? Would I be willing to leave this comfortable corporate job? Wow. And I was way out ahead of where I should have been, but I started thinking then of what would it be like to be on what I've actually called the other side.
Wow.
How scary that would be.
Yeah. You got a website, and on your website is the book, lifefinancial.solutions. I'm going to read the caption that's on here. This is a true account, talking about the book, The Other Side of the Fence. This is a true account of dreaming, escaping, struggling, and arriving on the other side, being transformed by experience. It analyzes the journey from being seemingly trapped in a traditional career to finding peace in self-employment, aiming for whatever comes next. Finding peace in self-employment, aiming for whatever comes next. Talk to me about that right there. Finding peace in self-employment, but in being an entrepreneur, sometimes we can't see what's next. What are we aiming? What's that aim?
I'll say right off the bat, Phil, that self-employment is not for everybody. And that's fine, because if you think about it, let's say that you have your own business and you're successful and you have to have employees to make it go. You need employees. Companies will always need employees. If you are an employee, you're providing a tremendously valuable service to that company, because they couldn't do what they do without you and your colleagues. On the other hand, when you have this mindset of self-employment that makes you take steps that others might not take, what you identify in yourself is some kind of either a fearlessness or a high risk tolerance.
Okay.
Because you have to be able to say, would I be comfortable if things don't work? You also have to be able to say, what's my backup plan? When things don't work, what will I do? And
right.
Sometimes people have a particular mix of thoughts and circumstances that will make them say, well, I don't have the answers to those, but I'm going to do this anyway. That was me.
Okay. Let's the book. On the cover of the book, you have, I left my $100,000 job and conquered fear. It sounds like what you were just speaking towards, and you're leaving this secure six-figure job to conquer the fear. Do you remember that day?
I remember the day I put in my resignation. I remember the day I left. I remember the time before that, because it was months leading up to it, and I knew I was going to leave, but it was a secret only to me. And literally, it was months. I wanted to achieve a certain number of years of service before I left, because there were benefits to that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I remember it very well.
When, on that day when you got home, how did you feel?
It wasn't so much that day, it was the next day. In fact, that day was it wasn't the next day, it was after the weekend. That day was a Friday. And I went to a coffee shop on that Monday morning and wrote in a journal. It was kind of like, welcome to this new life kind of stuff.
Okay.
I remember that very well. And the feeling that I had was, that is where the okay, what's next comes from.
Okay.
Because I had a certain goal that I needed to achieve within 4 months in my particular situation, and I needed to get to it, and I didn't know what was beyond that.
Okay.
But that thing that I was going to work on was going to be my vehicle for self-employment, and accomplishing the 4-month goal was just the start of it. After that, though, came the real work of how do you get this off the ground.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, did you have did you have a team, or were you solo, or what were you when you went to the coffee shop? What were you looking at to carry you the next 4 months?
The first few things that I needed to do were solo, because they involved my work of securing certain things and putting those in place. And so it involved creating the team.
Okay.
And the team at that time was not individual and personal; it was companies. I needed a company to make a prototype.
Okay.
Of an idea. I needed to find out, what kind of legal representation I might need. So I was in that mode. Following that, and very shortly after that period, I kind of went to people who I knew, and I said, I'd like your help with this because of what your experience, your expertise is.
Okay.
And I formed a small team. Okay. Just for that purpose.
Okay, great. Let's jump into the book. We're going to knock out. I'm just going to pull out a couple of chapters in the book, and I want to stir up enough interest that we would encourage people to go and purchase the book. And before we do that, let the audience know how they can find David E. Finnell.
How you can find me? Are you saying my contact or
your contact information, website?
Yes,
right, purchase the book,
exactly. Okay. Yes, and Philip, you mentioned the website. You can have different extensions on websites now. .com is not the only one.
Right.
So mine is lifefinancial.solutions, and if you go there, one of the tabs is a store where you can get the book, but the main focus of the website is financial education. If you send me a message through the website, on every single page you'll be on, there's a contact place at the bottom to send me a message. My phone number and email address are on the contact page.
Gotcha.
So all of that is there. And so what I've encouraged is to go to the website, lifefinancial.solutions, and you'll very well be able to get in touch with me.
Super. And we'll put all of that on the thumbnail as you guys can check in, and you'll be able to find Mr. Finnell. Being stuck in security. Chapter 1. Being stuck in security, coming from the book titled The Other Side of the Fence. Talk to us of what does that mean for you?
That security, financial security, for especially if you follow the model of go to school, get a good job, that kind of thing. The family, married, have kids, buy a house, etc. The financial security, that is just a common mindset. It works. Okay. It works for a lot of people. It has worked for a long time.
Right.
It is predictable if you have a good combination of skill set and company and job, those kinds of things. I was in that, and that is actually what made me choose even the degrees that I saw. I want to have this. I want to be able to make this much money. I want to be able to be secure. So that trap, I call it a trap because if I were to do anything different, as it turns out, this self-employment thing, I was going to have to break the mold. That mold was very well put around me by every example that I'd seen, my parents, family members, society, friends, you name it.
Yeah.
And so I was there. I say against my will. I was trapped in the secure job, right? I was trapped there against my will, but it was my will. So it wasn't really against my will. What was against my will was the fear that was keeping me there. When I resigned, I remember saying, I wrote this in, I'm sorry, I didn't write this. I actually said this to my manager. We went in a small room. I said, I got something I need to talk to you about. And I just said, what I'm doing here cannot compete with my dreams.
What you're doing on your job cannot compete with your dreams.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's almost sacrifice in reverse. You're sacrificing your dreams for the security of the box.
Yeah.
And that equation cannot equal happiness.
Right. It didn't work for me.
Wow. Talk to me about loving the bad guys.
You kind of think, who are the bad guys? Bad guys are the fear.
Okay.
Fear. Playing it safe. You even have to be careful who you talk to. If you go to certain people, especially in your family, the reason people will discourage you from fearful things is because it scares them for you. Or they put themselves in your place and it scares them to do what you're talking about.
Right.
And so those bad guys don't mean to be bad. It's just that if you don't recognize that their advice is coming from a certain place,
right,
then you're going to not necessarily go in the direction that you're trying to get to. You have to surround yourself with and find people who have done what you're talking about doing.
Right.
One of the things I say is it's obvious that people have struck out and started businesses. If you drive down any street, any busy street, there are businesses on both sides.
Right.
How did they get there? Who decided, I'm going to make this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start this?
Right.
Those are the folks, those kinds of folks are the ones that you want to surround yourself with and learn from them and model them.
Right. So you're saying, surround yourself with people that either are where you want to go or at least going in the direction that you want to go in.
Absolutely.
Let's jump down to chapter 6. Earning your worth by a different equation. Earning your worth by a different equation. Man, that's so powerful. Put some light on that.
Oh, there's some things there. And again, this is all very personal. This is everything in here I experienced. Expectations. Yes, aim high. Aim high with your expectations. Even don't be afraid of being unrealistic in your expectations. But at the same time, another expectation you should have is that there are going to be some difficulties. If you don't account for that, then you're going to be hit sideways.
There's going to be some bumps in the road.
Yeah. This is about expectations, good and bad.
Okay.
It's also about the exploration process. I got involved in different companies and different opportunities because I listened to the pitch. Somebody pitched me this idea, this opportunity, and said, hey, you can do this, you can make this much money, all you have to do is do this. And I learned from that. What you learn is it is exciting. And then after you've done it a couple times, you learn what you didn't know. And then you finally learn that what you're being pitched, what they're selling you is not success. What they're selling you is the dream.
Wow.
That is the main product of most MLMs. They're selling you a dream. Direct marketing companies, they're all saying they're selling you a dream. And so you have to be careful if you're able to see through that and say, okay, ask the right questions. How many people, what percentage of people actually do succeed with this?
Right.
And the dream is what motivates people to get inspired. If you go to these conferences, people are all riled up. They're all riled up about the dream.
Right.
And in fact, most of the audience is not having success yet.
Right.
What they're cheering for is the dream. And so you just have to know that, and that's part of it too. You have to be careful in your exploration. And then the third thing I say there is education. Don't be fooled by degrees or lack of degrees. I mean, there are people who have more degrees than me or smarter than me, who've done more than me, who wouldn't dare do what I've done. And there are folks who haven't gone to school who are doing way better than I ever expected to.
Wow.
So remember that education, even those degrees, all those were decisions that people made at some point in time. I'm going to go to school. And they persevered through that and they got a degree. That doesn't make their mind or them any better than you and yours.
Right. Well, you've been listening to the We Power podcast, the We Power broadcast. I've got my good friend here, David Finnell. He's a financial guide, and I would encourage you to reach out to him if you're looking to, or if you're planning anything pertaining to your finances. Check out his website, lifefinancial.solutions, where you can also find his ebook that we've been talking about, The Other Side of the Fence. He talks about how he left his $100,000 a year job and conquered his fear. And now he is a successful entrepreneur, making himself available to lead and guide us to financial solutions. Thank you for listening to the We Power podcast, the We Power broadcast. Check us out on the next episode.